Are you having a hard time deciding between the Active 2.3 and the MaxFlow MPro 25 Generation 2? Well, today's video is for you. Both of these units feature over 2 gallons per minute, importantly on a 15 amp circuit, but they do that very differently. In today's video, we're going to be putting these on a full comparison test, figuring out which one you should actually spend your hard-earned money on. We're going to be comparing the price, overall form factor, and the real-world performance here, figuring out what the PSI, flow, as well as current draw is, also considering the noise, and importantly, which one produces the best snow foam. Welcome back to the channel. Let's jump into it. Well, thank you all for being here today. Really excited to dive into this comparison test. Now, I have already filmed my full-length reviews with both of these units. I'll leave them linked in the description below if you want to check those out. This video will be a little bit more condensed here, giving you the quick-hitting facts here and giving you subjective feelings on which one I actually prefer. Now, one other quick note here, both of these companies did send these units out to me completely free of charge to actually make a review with. There's pros and cons to each one of these units, and I'll be telling you those, and at the end, hopefully coming up with a distinct decision on which one I think you should actually spend your money on. What's really interesting about both of these units that sit in kind of their own class and segment is that they really only compete with each other. Why I say that is there's nothing around $500 that is over 2 gallons per minute on a 15 amp circuit. The AR630, for example, is around this 2.3 at 1000 PSI range, but it needs a 20 amp circuit and is almost $1,000. Now, conversely, below this, you have the Active 2.0, the Macmillans, all those products that are roughly at 2 gallons per minute. So if you want a little bit more flow, these are really your only two options on 15 amp. Now, starting off with specs with the Active 2.3, this retails at $539.99. Conversely, over here, the MaxFlow MPro 25 Gen 2, I'm just going to call it the MaxFlow for the rest of the video, retails right at $499. So a $40 premium for the 2.3 over here. Now, the claim specifications on these are a little bit different. Now, Active claims over here a working pressure of 1100 PSI at 2.3 gallons per minute with their included 4.6 orifice. Now, I will tell you, it's probably going to be slightly under that, but it's a little bit more reasonable and probably more about what you're going to get. The MaxFlow over here, I very much dislike how they market this machine. They very much market this as a 1500 PSI unit at 2.5 gallons per minute. I will be the first one to tell you, you will not actually see that. But the big difference here, these do things very differently. So starting over here with the 2.3, this utilizes a 128 induction motor on it, their patented 5-piston pump head. The induction motor is very traditional from what we've seen in the pressure washer space. Where over here, the MaxFlow utilizes a permanent magnet motor, a triplex crankshaft driven pump on it, but the big thing is this actually has software. So traditionally, when we're talking about these pressure washers, to make sure we are getting the maximum flow, the correct PSI that we're trying to get, we utilize orifice tips to actually figure that out. The cool thing over here is you can really play infinitely with different orifice sizes and tips, and the software is going to keep you under that 15 amps. For example, over here, if you use a 1.35 orifice, they call for a 1.45 in a foam cannon, you are going to overamp the machine. Now, it sounds fine, it runs fine, but you can start blowing up micro switches, tear up your circuitry, all of that fun stuff, where the logic and the tuning over here keeps it under that 15 amps, which is really cool. Now, of course, we're going to figure out which proper orifice nozzle size actually works best with this unit in terms of the PSI and flow, but that is really cool that you can really dial it in for your liking. This also up here does have variable control on your actual PSI, so you can actually turn the unit down. I personally don't think this is something that I really care about on this unit. Now, if they're to come out with a higher flow unit like a 2.5, 2.7, 2.8, maybe even 3.0, that's where I could see this thing being very nice to turn that down so you can actually use something like DI water at about 2.5 gallons per minute. I think that's where this is pretty cool. Now, I will tell you, in my full review of this, I did have issues with the software in this. And the big issue is it doesn't like my GFCI electrical setup here at the shop. Every single outlet I plug this unit into the shop at, it trips the circuit breaker immediately. Now, I did also test this at home on a regular outlet, on a GFCI outlet, worked perfect. I tested it at my dad's, worked perfect. So this is a known issue that certain GFCI circuits this does not work with. I can't even really get this thing to power on and work whatsoever. I took the GFCI plug off of this, swapped it to a normal one. That did not fix it. So MaxFlow is actually working on this. I'm going to be working with them as well to hopefully figure out some things, because I do think that's a big negative for me. Now, the other interesting thing here, comparing these two units, they have a very different form factor. The Active 2.3 you can see is quite long and is also quite heavy. So I'll actually put the weight up on screen of both of these units, whereas the MaxFlow over here, very compact and very lightweight. Personally, the way I view this, the Active 2.3 looks more like a pressure washer you're going to wall mount and leave up there and do that with. The MaxFlow, on the other hand, does seem like a unit. Yes, you can still put it up on a wall, but this is going to be something you put away and set up every time you need to actually use your pressure washer, because it's so nice and compact. You can take it around and it's not a big strain to actually pull this thing. But I think at the end of the day, design-wise, I personally prefer the Active 2.3. It does feel a little bit higher quality because it's a little bit heavier. We've got a lot more metal on here, where the full shroud here is actually plastic. One thing that I prefer on the MaxFlow over here is we actually have anodized fittings here for both our M22 14mm fitting and our 3/4 inch garden hose thread. I do think that's a nice touch, but in general, I'll tell you, this definitely feels like a more premium experience. One important thing I wanted to run through here was how these machines not only start up, how they sound, how the total stop works on them, because yes, they do both total stop on these, but very differently. Also, you'll notice we do have a different unit here. This is the camo version. They actually sent me this because I was having GFCI issues. This has a new software update on it. It did not work here at the shop. The only way I'm getting this to work is actually using vehicle to load functions on my Kia EV6. So this is plugged into the charge port, feeding off that 84 kilowatt hour battery pack. Now, when I do my testing, I'm going to run both of these units off that plug, give you all the stats on them side by side, because they're the same exact voltage on that. Wouldn't be fair to run them separately, but I do want to go through here the startup sequence. So as always, you want to pull the trigger. So with the 2.3, you can see, turn it right on. One thing I actually really like, especially if you're wall mounting this as well, it's right on the front here where the MaxFlow is up at the top. So you can see that's started, it's on, ready to go. Now with the MaxFlow over here, I press the button up top, and it goes through this cycle setup. Every single time you start it, it does this. So it's got a little bit higher speed, and then it comes down into a lower speed. Once it turns green on here, we're good to go now. So I want to show you different sound profiles of these. Now I'm going to stand here. I'll put them side by side, and then I'll go across the shop, because you're not washing a car right here, are you? But I'll also give you my feelings on how they actually sound. So the Active 2.3, yeah, it's a little on the loud side. It's not super quiet, especially compared to the Active 3.0. That is much quieter. But the big thing here is the tone. I really like the tone on this. Now, I think I'm kind of in the minority of this. A lot of people don't like the tone of this. I think it sounds great. Sounds like a very healthy, very premium sounding motor. Whereas over here with the MaxFlow, try and get the mic in the same exact area. You get this shrill out of it, and you'll also see the big difference with that total stop, right? So this runs through that cycle after every single time you let off the trigger. Sure takes a while. Very different. So I'm curious what you guys think. Now, the startup when they're in this kind of steady state here is a little different. So you can see the active. So it's got a little bit of a ramp up there, right? So it lets some water out, ramps it up. It doesn't hold a ton of line pressure. The MaxFlow, you do get this pop, and then it feeds back in. I personally find this to be a louder machine, and I don't prefer the tone on this to this. So in general, I can tell you from just a user standpoint, I prefer the tone, the overall noise of this. I feel like this is quieter. Now, a decibel meter, I don't like using because I don't think they're actually accurate for the environment. Like I have huge ceilings in here versus somebody who might be in a garage. They sound very different. I prefer the tone, I prefer the sound, I prefer the overall volume of this. This to me just has a little too much shrill, and I really don't like that whole total stop system. But I do want to show you as we pull this and get it to recover a little bit. So you can still see that ramp up. Now this is very different on the MaxFlow here. So I do like that mode, how it's just immediate there and doesn't have that ramp, but I hate all this stuff. I really, really dislike that. It's just very, very different. As usual, achieving nerd level 9000 here on this channel. So what you guys are seeing is a culmination of a lot of testing I just did off camera for you guys. So a couple of quick notes here. I was unfortunately not able to use the Active 2.3 off my vehicle to load function. It kept tripping it. It just would not work. So the voltage was slightly higher on the Active 2.3, coming in at 121.4 volts. Now, naturally, the higher the voltage, the less current or the less hard the machine is going to have to run. So you'll see the MaxFlow up here runs at 119.4 volts. So slightly different. I apologize. I really wish I could run these off the same outlet. The MaxFlow trips every time on my outlets and the Active trips on my car. It's annoying, it's frustrating, it is what it is. So moving down here, the stock orifice size in the MaxFlow is a 4.5. As tested here, 1100 PSI, 14.2 amps, giving us 2.254 GPM. As you can clearly see, not 1500 PSI at 2.5 GPM. Now the Active, coming with their 4.6 orifice that comes with the unit, 1025 PSI, 13.1 amps, giving us 2.240 GPM. Pretty impressive on both fronts here. Now, a big distinction you'll see between these two units. I could go all the way down to a 2.5 orifice on the MaxFlow, being that it has that software control. Now, the issue there, of course, is your GPM is really going to suffer. You really can't get this unit over about 1225 PSI. Now, the interesting distinction here, it will hold 1400 PSI in line, whereas the Active only holds 600 PSI. Pretty interesting distinction there. But you'll also notice you can really not use anything below a 4.5 on the Active, as a 4.0 pulls 15.7 amps. So really would recommend kind of sticking with the stock orifices here. I could definitely see on the MaxFlow unit bumping maybe up to a 5.0 to drop the pressure a little bit, but you're not really gaining all that much. I guess you're getting somewhat closer to 3 gallons per minute. I think it is, yeah, I really think a 4.5 is kind of optimized if you want a little bit less pressure. That 925 PSI pulling only 12.1 amps, giving you 2.29 gallons per minute. That's pretty darn awesome. So I hope you guys appreciate this. This genuinely took a ton of time. If you know how long it takes to do all of this, it's a lot. So I'm going to leave all this info for you. Screenshot it if you'd like. Again, it's based on your voltage here, but I'm giving you all the data. Again, both of these were tested on the same exact hose, the same exact gun, the Active 50-foot 5/16 hose. So now let's move into some foam cannons. So now that we understand our flow, PSI, how these compare to each other, the last important thing I want to check is the foam production on these. And this is where, in my impression, the Active 2.3 starts to fall a little bit short. The reason being is Active recommends a 1.45 millimeter orifice to keep it under that 15 amp threshold. Now with that 1.45 that they put in here, it's 1000 PSI at about 12.9 amps, which is actually plenty of headroom there. The interesting thing is if you switch down to their 1.35, it goes crazy, 1500 PSI and like 18 amps. So you can't use that on this machine. You're going to blow up the micro switch, trip breakers, all that stuff. Now, even moving to an MJJC style 1.35, you still go over. Now it's a little bit less. It pulls 17 amps. I'll tell you the foam is beautiful. I'll show it to you here because that's, again, the biggest negative with the Active here. Now, the cool part is over on the MaxFlow, they typically recommend a 1.35, but you can go even lower than that because the machine's actually going to tell it to pull all of the current out of that and it'll stay under 15 amps. So this is going to be a very simple test. What we're going to do is test the 1.45 Active orifice in the foam cannon, a 1.35 from MJJC, and a 1.25 from Armored Detail Supply. Now inside of these foam cannons, they are identical. We have 2 ounces per 1,000 milliliters of DIY Detail Incredible Suds Type 2, and I'll show the difference of the foam production here. But again, the great thing here is the MaxFlow is naturally going to produce a better snow foam safely just because of that smart logic it has inside. The way this test is going to go, the active will be up front here, the MaxFlow at the back. Now we're going to start off with our active 1.45 millimeter orifice. I'll also put up what the PSI and current draw per each machine is on every single one of these. And 2 ounces of DIY Detail Incredible Suds Type 2. Let's check out the foam. So, unfortunately, he's going to keep running there while I'm trying to talk here. But you can definitely see on the MaxFlow unit, it is naturally a little bit drier here than the active. And again, the problem with the active is I can't really go down from this. I can't go anywhere. So it is naturally a little bit runnier. And this is the same situation we get into with the Active 3.0, the AR635. But you can definitely tell a distinct difference to these. But again, remember, we're only using a 1.45 here on the MaxFlow when we can crank this bad boy down. So next, let's go to the MJJC 1.35. Now this is the real frustrating part with the Active 2.3 here, is because what you're gonna see is great snow foam out of this 1.35. But then again, we are over amping our machine. Look how nice, thick, and rich that snow foam is. That is great foam production. Again, unfortunately, we just can't use it. So again, we're gonna do that 1.45 on the front door here with the 2.3. You can just immediately tell a lot drier, a lot more snow foam in general. And again, that's a really great thing about the MaxFlow unit here, is we can really crank that orifice down to get our better foam production. Again, is the active usable? Absolutely, but we can even crank this down more to a 1.25 in our MaxFlow. Again, still staying at that 1.45 for the active. Oh, it is sputtering a little bit. Interesting. I hadn't had that before. I used the same exact orifice tip in here last time and it wasn't sputtering. So that's pretty weird. But again, you can still use a 1.35. Pretty strange there. So 1.35 for the MaxFlow, great snow foam on there. And then the active, again, that 1.45, a little bit on the runnier side. Let me know what you guys think. Are you okay with the active snow foam, or do you really need that extra from the MaxFlow? Well, I know we're at that point in the video where you want my recommendations, and I think the challenging thing with these two units is they both have their pros, they both have their cons. Over here with the Active 2.3, I think this is a great overall unit, but you do sacrifice a little bit of foam production, and I do think that's a shame. Now, I would recommend maybe trying that Armor Detail Supply 1.4, seeing if that works for you. I've seen nothing else around that 1.4. It's either 1.45 or 1.35, and it's very tricky to find anything. So I do think that's a shame. Now, again, at 540 bucks, I do think this is a good value. You can also use my affiliate code Colton5 to save 5% off this unit. Over here with the MaxFlow, if you use code out of spec, that'll save you 10% off this unit as well. Both those codes will save you 5% off the active line of products and 10% off the MaxFlow line of products. I think my biggest drawback with this unit is, number one, I've had issues with it, right? With the GFCI tripping. I've read your guys' comments. You've had issues with this as well. I have seen some people comment that they've removed the GFCI outlet, replaced it with a normal outlet. I really don't suggest doing that. Messing with your electrical stuff just to make a pressure washer work doesn't sound right. So currently, there's no actual fix to make this software work, at least on my shop, and it sounds like your guys' area as well. So I do think that's a shame. Again, my biggest drawbacks with this is the noise performance of this. I don't find it as pleasant as a tone as the 2.3 over here. That's of course very subjective. I personally really don't like the ramp up and ramp off of this. I much prefer the total start stop over here. So again, I'm very conflicted. I'm not sure. Active has been in the game a little bit longer than MaxFlow, but on the same vein, I really like what MaxFlow is trying to do here and innovate and change the industry a little bit. So I don't know, guys. Let me know in the comment section, would you pick up an Active 2.3 or the MaxFlow MPro 25 Generation 2? Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in another one soon. Bye-bye.